Hello and welcome to week 4 of The Listening Path by Julia Cameron. I've done an introduction video which you can find in the self-help playlist where I go through what the program is about, supplies that you may want to have if you're deciding to work through the program. In the previous weeks, we've focused on listening to our environment, listening to other people. Last week was about listening to our higher selves. And this week we focus on listening to those who have passed on. This week, if you're following along in the book, it's only 8 pages and there are 2 exercises, so it's definitely one of the smaller chapters. I also did notice that at my library here in southwestern Ontario, we do have the Listening Path available as an audiobook. So if you don't have the book and you're interested in giving it a test run, make sure to check out your library to see if they have it, either book in hand copy or possibly as an audiobook. On page 145, we begin. This week we listen deeper yet and will reach to connect to those who have passed on. As we're now in the habit of listening to our environment, our fellows, and our higher selves, we'll find that this next step is not as much of a reach as we might assume. We'll find that those who have crossed through the veil may feel closer than we expected, and that if we can resist our own resistance, listening for them can be both casual and gentle. Connecting to the world beyond. The fourth tool of the listening path asks us to listen to the world beyond the veil. This requires spiritual openness. Unlike many societies who revere their ancestors and ask them for guidance, our society tends to think that ancestors and deceased friends are beyond our reach. Not so, says the listening path. If we're open to it, we can hear from those who have passed on. All that is required is the willingness to experiment. As we reach out to our deceased loved ones, they reach back to us. It's not uncommon to hear them speaking as they spoke in life. All that's required is that we open the door. And so we write, "Can I hear from your loved one?" The answers come promptly and easily. I'd just add a side note there. It may not, particularly if you are just starting this type of work, happen quickly or easily. As I mentioned in the previous week with the other exercises, asking for guidance from our higher selves, it takes time and practice. So if you're new to this, then please be mindful of that. It doesn't just happen. That's just my opinion and thoughts for what they're worth. We hear our loved ones speaking, sometimes so easily that we doubt the communication can be real. But what if it is real? Do not doubt our bond, we are chided. And so we're asked to set our skepticism aside. We're asked to be vulnerable, childlike, and open. When we cooperate, we're rewarded by further communication. On this point, I would also like to stress this is why various channels out there grate on my nerves, as do some of the grifter psychics. If you're open and listening, you can hear your loved ones. They're sending you messages through dreams, through other forms of communication, whether that's a song that you both enjoyed together, sending you people to give you messages and information, Our loved ones have a lot of different ways of communicating. So, no, you don't need to be paying hundreds of dollars to someone who is claiming that in a week or a month, depending how long you have to wait, they're suddenly going to be able to tune into your loved one just waiting to show up. Your loved one is right beside you. And that's all I'm going to say on that. Actually, the one thing I will add there, yes, I do think there are some gifted psychics and people who find it much easier to communicate with those who have passed on. I just don't think they're the ones all over social media charging you hundreds of dollars. And they're definitely not the folks with those boxes claiming to talk to your loved ones, especially when they're rich and famous the day after they've passed on. I mean, truly ask yourself, why on earth would your loved one be going to a stranger when it makes far more sense that they are right there beside you, knowing how difficult this is and wanting to be sure that you're okay? They're not zooming around the ether to talk to some grifter. And obviously, yes, I do believe in talking to our loved ones after they've passed. My paternal grandmother has been with me for a very long time. She passed when I was 18 years old. I can chat with her in my dreams, sometimes English, sometimes Hungarian, so there you go. And I always know she's close by when I get the fragrance of lily of the valley. And no, I don't mean outside when my lily of the valley is blooming. I mean any time of the year, nowhere near the plants. I also know when my maternal grandmother is around, and no, we were not close, but I know when she's around me because there's the smell of orange. And unlike some people who really enjoy the smell of orange and citrus, I do not. She's not someone that I was close to, and she doesn't thankfully hang around much. But when she does, it's a reminder of having to watch what I'm saying and how I say it, because she was very sharp and nasty with individuals. And although I was not near her growing up, thank goodness, I definitely got her sharp tongue. So when I'm getting that strong orange scent, it's a reminder, along with Blue Jay, because again, I work with animal guides. If you've been here, you know that. Both are reminders of having to watch the words I'm choosing and how I'm conveying the information. On page 156, and I don't normally read the quotes from the chapters, but Julia has a number of them throughout. This particular quote is from Mitch Albom, which is kind of funny. I was just looking at a couple of his books. Death ends a life, not a relationship. And the book that I was looking at is The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. The quote farther down the page is by Friedrich Nietzsche. I still need to read 3 of his works that I've had for years. The quote is, "Invisible threads are the strongest ties." definitely relates to the topic of the chapter. On page 146, Julia says, I speak to people who have passed on as a daily practice. As I reach out, they hear me and respond. The first is a spirit named Jane Cecil, a close friend and advisor during her lifetime. I spoke to her daily and was grateful for her wise counsel. Can I hear from Jane? I ask. I hear back promptly, Julia, I'm right at your side. You're led carefully and well. There is no error in your path. Having greeted me and set me at ease, Jane is ready to be more specific. She turns her attention to the issue at hand. Your book is going well, she tells me. Keep a steady pace. Do not second guess yourself. Jane's messages are brief and direct. They're soothing, having the uncanny knack of addressing precisely my current concerns. Sometimes they pinpoint a concern before I've identified it. Jane may say, You're clean and sober. You'll continue to be firm in your sobriety. Until Jane spoke, I was not consciously aware of my nagging worry about drinking. But there it was. Jane's wisdom surpassed my own. If you're not aware, and Julia has shared in her introduction, I know in The Artist's Way, I'm trying to remember now if it came up here as well, she has been sober for decades, and her method of dealing with her drinking was through the Alcoholics Anonymous program. If you're not familiar, that is a 12-step program. No, I don't think it's a coincidence that The Artist's Way and a couple of her other programs are all 12 weeks. This particular program, The Listening Path, is only 6 weeks. After talking to Jane, I turned my attention to another friend, Alberta Honstein, a breeder of the championship Morgan horses. Alberta's communiques retain the flavors of the horse show ring. Julia, you're a champion, she may tell me. No obstacle is too much for you. You're strong. I give you stamina and grace. Like Jane's, Alberta's messages are reassuring. They tackle what I think of as my hidden concerns. I worry that I'm not strong enough, but Alberta assures me that I'm plenty. She calls me a champion. Horse talk for excellent. Alberta, like Jane, urges me to trust the reality of our ongoing bond. You reach to me and I reach to you, Alberta assures me. You talk to me and I talk to you, she asserts. We are as we always were, she pronounces. Our bond is eternal. Faced with reassurances, I find myself trusting. When I write out what I hear, I find myself thinking that more people should try my simple tool. Ask to hear and then listen. It was need that triggered my reaching out to my friends. In life we talk daily. In death, the habit continued. There were topics I could only raise with Jane, topics I could only raise with Alberta. My need for continued contact and advice led me to listening. I would pose the question, can I hear from Jane about her question? And then I'd listen as if she were right in the room with me. I found that she was with me. Pen in hand, I took dictation, writing from Jane about my question. It was the same with Alberta. In her lifetime, I frequently asked her to pray for me. Nervous about teaching, I would call her. Stick me in the prayer pot, I would request. Alberta's prayers gave me confidence. I could feel their steadying impact. When she died, suddenly, unexpectedly, I posed my request to the ethers. Alberta, please help me. Pen in hand, I would listen for a response. You'll do very well. promised Alberta from the ethers. I give you wisdom, stamina, and grace. Writing down what I heard, I found myself marveling at Alberta's poise and dignity, the same in death as in life. On page 148, Julia goes on to say, "You're lucky to have direct contact, Scott Pierce tells me, but I feel luck has little to do with it. Open-mindedness does. If more people would experiment with making contact, communication with deceased loved ones would be commonplace." But Julia, what if your responses from the afterlife are just wishful thinking? If so, my wishful thinking leads me in a positive direction. There can be no harm in the positive. The contact bolsters our self-worth. As we strive to be worthy of our messages, we become better, stronger people. Our wishful thinking leads us forward. It's been 3 years since Jane passed on, and 2 years for Alberta. I began writing to them promptly, and I now have several years' worth of messages. Leafing back through my journals, I find that their messages stay essentially the same. They're upbeat and reassuring. They urge me to have faith, to trust that I'm on track, well and carefully led. I find no dire warnings. Perhaps their guidance keeps trouble at bay. "Julia," I hear from Alberta, "your creativity is intact." "Julia," Jane echoes her, "you're as strong as ever." I sometimes read Scotty Pierce, what I've been told. When I share with her that I'm confused over some issue in my life, she'll ask me, "Did you ask your guidance? What did Jane and Alberta say?" Over the years, Scotty has come to trust my guidance as I do. For my part, I find myself able to talk to her of messages. She listens to me closely and never scolds me for being woo-woo. My believing mirror, Sonia Choquette, is another confidant. When I tell her Jane's or Alberta's take on something, she urges me to trust their input. When I confess to her that I find it easy to contact them, so easy I sometimes doubt our contact can be real, Sonia, a third-generation psychic, scolds me. "Don't think it has to be hard," she warns me. "Communication with spirits is natural and easy." Now, if you don't know who Sonia Choquette is, she is a friend of Julia Cameron and also the author of The Psychic Pathway. And again, probably not a coincidence that it is a 12-week program. Sonia wrote a foreword for Julia, and Julia is mentioned in the foreword of The Psychic Pathway. And again, this may be a program that if you're interested in working with loved ones who have passed on, this may be a program that you may enjoy. I've worked through it once. I may actually work through it again a second time. The activities are not difficult to do. I know there are people out there who are thinking this is all woo-woo and just your imagination. Personally, that doesn't bother me. I have had messages from my grandmother, from my father, from other loved ones who have passed on, and if it's just my imagination, I'm okay with that because, like Julia, the messages are positive, reassuring, keep me in a positive frame of mind and moving forward with my life, and to me, that's not a bad thing. So again, this comes to finding and doing what works best for you. And as for the naysayers, I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure most of them are the ones who get sucked in the biggest by the grifters, because when shit hits the fan, as it does for all of us, sadly, they're trying to make sense of things. They're vulnerable, they're in pain, and that's when those grifters tend to swoop in. So if it's my imagination, I'm okay with that because it has saved me thousands upon thousands of dollars that other individuals spend when they don't have some kind of reassurance like this. I'm not saying every author who's written a book about being psychic or any of them all over the various social platforms are grifters. I'm just saying be really careful before you decide to shell out a ton of money when you could, if you're open to that type of thing, and if you're paying psychics and whatnot, then you're open to it. You can do the communication yourself. You don't have to spend hundreds of dollars to make contact with a stranger, expecting them to make contact with your loved ones who are right there beside you every day. Through the chapter, Julia also shares a conversation with Susan Lander, another friend of hers, and a medium and psychic. So again, if you have the book, then you can read through that. The two exercises, one on page 150, I invite you to try woo-woo. Select a friend or family member to whom you felt particularly close during their lifetime. Ask the simple question, can I hear from the person you're trying to contact? Be prepared for a quick response that, yes, you can hear from them. I would say it may not be quick. And be open-minded. You may not hear the word yes, but what you may hear is a song that has some connection to the person you're asking about. You may be reading a book after you've asked your question and something comes up to remind you of them. You may end up dreaming about them that night and have a conversation with them. So, along with asking the question, I would say stay open to how your loved one will choose to communicate with you. Listen for what they have to tell you. Very often you'll find it reassuring, as though you were picking up the thread of a cherished conversation. The message may be brief but direct. In all likelihood, it will leave you feeling loved. Thank your correspondent for getting in touch with you. If you wish, promise to be in contact again soon. You may want to journal about the experience as Julia does. You may want to make note of how that message came through because, as I say, you may not hear it as an auditory message. It may come through in a dream, in a book, a TV program, any number of different ways. Our loved ones have a lot of different ways of communicating, and to be aware of what they're letting us know, you have to stay mindful of everything around you in your world, the sounds, the sights, etc. The second exercise on page 152, close your eyes and imagine yourself in a special locale. Walk into the locale imagining that you have a rendezvous with your spirit guide. Who and what do you see? Most important, what guidance do you hear? Your guide is wise and gentle. Allow yourself to take in spiritual advice. Thank your guide for the guidance and return to your normal consciousness, knowing that you've established contact and that you can visit with your guide again whenever you need input. That exercise is very similar to a number of relaxation exercises that you can find on CDs, you can find in other books. No doubt there are videos galore out there with relaxation exercises and contacting either loved ones or spirit guides. I really need to get back to doing that because, yes, I do have a location and a number of different people that when I'm doing those exercises and in that zone, there's a lot of good information that comes through from that, and it's very helpful to record those exercises and experiences because, as Julia says, the messages that come through are positive, loving, and help us move in a more peaceful and joyful life. I also want to stress that when you are connecting with loved ones, spirit guides, whatever you choose to call them, the messages are loving and encouraging. They are not going to be telling you to do horrific things to other people or to yourself. They are not going to be cruel and malicious and telling you that you're not good enough. Those are not your loved ones or spirit guides. So please do be mindful and be aware of the types of messages that you're getting. As always, the chapter closes with a check-in. Have you kept up with your morning pages, artist dates, and walks? What have you discovered in consciously listening for those beyond the veil? Do you find that you feel more connected to those who have passed? Did you experience resistance? Were you able to resist it? Name one memorable experience of listening. What was the aha that came from it for you? Now, when I do this program, I can quickly finish it because, like I say, I have been doing this for decades. And I actually have a really cool piece of writing that I have kept in a safe place because it isn't in my handwriting. I wrote it, but it's my grandmother's handwriting. And I know because I have a sample of her handwriting in a book that she gave me as a gift. And a number of those letters, that's not how I write. That's the way she did cursive writing. So I get some people may think, wow, that's bizarre and out there. And again, I'm okay with that because I'm okay with my life and how I move through this world. And if that's not your thing, that's okay too, to each their own. Yes, week 5 may also be a bit woo-woo for some folks, as the 2 heroes that Julia speaks with have also both passed on. What I find immensely interesting is they are 2 individuals I would very much like to chat with as well. So to find out who those are, stay tuned, and until next time, be safe, be well, and most of all, be mindful for those signals from your loved ones.